The snow crackled beneath my boots as I pushed deeper into the forest trail, each step stirring up tiny bursts of white powder that drifted like smoke around my ankles. Winter had struck Ravenholt with brutal beauty this year, smothering the pines in layers of glittering frost that shimmered like shards of glass under the fading sun. The cold bit straight through my thin coat, but I'd long since learned to live with discomfort. After all, life in the cramped human outpost on the edge of Shifterlands had hardened me. My fingers gripped the cracked leather strap of my worn satchel, the familiar weight of medical supplies pressing against my side, a small comfort in the silence. 3 years as Haven Reach's only nurse had taught me to find peace in solitude, gathering herbs in this no man's land, between humans and wolves. Out here I could breathe. No judging eyes, no whispers about my bloodline, no constant reminder that I didn't belong anywhere. My pale hair, nearly white beneath the winter sun, kept slipping from under my wool cap, strands flickering like silver flame whenever the wind changed. Alira. My grandmother used to say, the moon had marked me, her moon-blessed girl, born to heal what others feared. I could still feel her gentle hands braiding my hair before dawn, whispering, "You carry light in your hands, Lyssan. Never mistake kindness for weakness." Those words lived in me still. My fingers brushed the pendant she'd given me, a small silver moon holding a star, its surface smooth from years of worry and love. It was all I had left of her, a promise that gentleness was a strength the world didn't understand. Then it came, a cry, sharp echoing through the trees like glass shattering in the stillness. I froze, heart pounding. A child's cry, very young and close, too close. Another sound followed, a low, haunting howl that crawled up my spine and turned my breath to ice. Wolf shifters. The most feared clan in the north, ruled by Raelion, the Alpha King. His cruelty was legend in Haven Reach, stories, whispered to scare children. Except those tales were true. Common sense screamed for me to turn back, to run for the safety of human walls. But something deeper, something older, pulled me forward. Before I realized it, my boots were moving, crunching through the snow toward that broken sound. The trees parted into a small clearing. Against the roots of an ancient oak lay a tiny wolf pup, its fur a gleaming silver white against the snow. But even from a distance, I saw the wrongness, its hind legs twisted at unnatural angles, unmoving despite its desperate efforts to crawl. I crouched slowly, hands open to show peace. "Hey there, little one," I whispered, voice barely a breath. "I won't hurt you." The pup's golden eyes, unnervingly intelligent, heartbreakingly aware, locked on mine. Not an ordinary wolf, a shifter child. My stomach knotted in dread. Touching one without permission, especially a royal born, was enough to get a human killed. But the pup whimpered again, a soft, hopeless sound, and that was all it took. I slipped off my scarf and held it out for him to smell. "I'm a healer," I murmured. "Let me help you." The growl faded. The tiny creature lowered its head, surrendering. My trained fingers examined its legs. No injury, only a deformity from birth. A child born broken, abandoned to die by shifter law. The strong survive. The weak perish. That was their way. "You poor thing," I whispered, tears stinging as I wrapped him gently in my scarf. "You've been all alone out here, haven't you?" The little body trembled against my chest as I tucked him under my coat. "You're safe now," I promised softly. "No one should die in the cold." Then snap! A twig cracked behind me. The forest went silent. Even the wind stopped. Slowly I turned. At the edge of the clearing stood a man who was no mere man. Even without the twisted silver crown tangled in his dark hair, his presence alone screamed power. Raelion, the Alpha King. Nearly 7 feet of raw predatory grace, wrapped in black furs that made his frame look carved from the night itself. His face was cut from shadow and strength, a faint scar tracing from temple to jaw, giving him a dangerous, impossible beauty. But it was his eyes, those same molten gold eyes as the pup, that froze my pulse. They burned with fury so cold, It made the winter itself feel warm. Human, he growled the word, dripping centuries of contempt. You dare set foot on wolfland. Every instinct in me screamed to kneel, to beg, but the fragile warmth, trembling in my arms, lit a fire in my chest. I didn't know I had. This child was suffering. I said, my voice steady in spite of the fear crawling down my spine. Left to die in the snow. Something flickered across his face, too quick to name. Pain, maybe? Recognition. That is not your concern. He closed the distance in 3 long strides, his massive frame blotting out the last light of dusk. The pup is weak, he said coldly. Nature made her choice. Then nature also gave me the hands that heal and a heart that doesn't turn away. I shot back, clutching the bundle tighter. His golden eyes narrowed. You'd question me, you'd challenge an alpha. I'd ask if you'd condemn a child for being born different. I said, heat rising in my chest, for needing help. He inhaled deeply, nostrils flaring. You smell of herbs. And healing, he murmured, his tone softening a fraction. You're a healer among your kind. A nurse, I answered. I was collecting medicine when I heard him cry. His jaw flexed, the muscle twitching beneath the scar that carved down his cheek. That pup is my son. The words hit like a strike to the chest. The Alpha King's heir. I froze, realizing I was holding death itself in my arms. Yet instead of tearing me apart, Raelion did something I never expected. He stepped closer and looked down at his son, his expression a strange mix of agony and restraint. The circle decreed he be left to the elements, he said quietly. A future alpha can't be imperfect. My voice cracked with disbelief. His gaze snapped up a low growl building. You know nothing of our ways, human, of the cost of leadership. I know this, I said, meeting his stare without flinching. He's a child who deserves a chance. And you're the Alpha King. Your word is law. If you say he lives, no one can deny it. For a long, pulsing heartbeat, Raelion said something. Then to my astonishment, he extended his arms. Give me my son. I held him closer. So you can abandon him somewhere else. A dangerous glint flared in his eyes. You defy me twice, human, he warned, voice low and lethal. Hand him over, or I'll leave your bones for the ravens. My hands trembled as I surrendered the bundle. The pup whimpered, one small broken sound that shattered me. I shut my eyes, unable to watch what would follow. But instead of retreating footsteps, I heard a soft murmur. Ancient words spoken like a prayer. When I opened my eyes, Raelion was holding his son against his chest, whispering in a language older than the mountains. The tenderness in that brutal man's arms stole my breath. What's your name, human? He asked quietly. Lyssan, I whispered. Lyssan, he repeated, testing it as though it held weight. You've shown courage rare in your kind. And wisdom, perhaps. His eyes lifted, assessing. My son needs care, a kind of care our healers cannot give. My heart stumbled in my chest. I can help. I've treated children born this way. He studied me for a long, heavy moment. You'd walk willingly into Blackspire Keep, he said, a ghost of a smile curving his lips, knowing you might never leave. I swallowed hard. If it means saving him, yes. Something shifted in his expression, respect maybe, or disbelief that a human could be so bold. Then you'll come with us, Raelion said, voice firm as stone. Raelion's voice cut through the stillness, low and commanding. You will tend to my son's needs, he said, not as a request, but a decree carved in stone. If he thrives under your care, you'll be rewarded. If he does not... He left the threat unfinished, letting the silence speak for him. Twilight was swallowing the woods, the last traces of sunlight fading into the black skeletons of trees. Raelion turned without another word, clearly expecting me to follow. Wait, I called, stumbling after him. What's his name? Your son. He paused, glancing down at the small bundle asleep against his chest. For the briefest heartbeat, the fierce Alpha King looked almost human. A father, not a ruler. "He has no name," he said at last. "Names are given during the full moon's naming ceremony. He was deemed unworthy." The cold indifference in those words hit harder than the wind. Anger burned through me, sharp and wild. "Then maybe it's time he was given one," I said, before I could think better of it. Raelion's eyes narrowed, golden light flickering within. For a tense second, I thought I'd gone too far, but then, to my astonishment, he gave a slight nod. "Perhaps it is." He studied me for a long moment, unreadable as stone. Then he said, "The moon is rising, Lyssan. We must reach the pack before full dark. Even I wouldn't tempt the creatures that roam after nightfall." He turned again, striding forward, his broad silhouette cutting through the snow like a shadow made flesh. I followed, heart-hammering, aware with each step that I was leaving behind everything I'd ever known, stepping into a world that would never truly accept me. And yet, watching how gently the fearsome Alpha held his son, something inside me stirred. Hope, faint but alive. Maybe saving this child wasn't just mercy, maybe it was my purpose, the one Alira had always told me would find me someday. The forest thinned, giving way to open land, and there it stood. Blackspire Keep, a fortress of dark stone and towering spires, clawing at the night sky, lit by torches whose flames twisted in the wind. Guards snapped to attention as we approached, their eyes widening when they saw me, a human, walking beside their king. "My lord," one stammered, "the circle has gathered. They await your word." "To confirm the deed. The deed is undone," Raelion said coldly, his jaw tight. "And the circle will answer to me for their arrogance." The guard paled and bowed low. "Yes, Alpha. This human is under my protection," Raelion announced, his voice carrying across the courtyard. "She is here to tend my son. Any who threaten her threaten me. Is that understood?" A chorus of voices answered yes. "Alpha," but the stares that followed burned like coals on my skin, curious, distrustful, hostile. I lifted my chin and kept walking, my gaze fixed on the pup in his arms. Whatever dangers waited behind those walls, they were worth facing if it meant saving him. Raelion led me through massive carved doors, their panels depicting wolves locked in eternal hunts. Inside the fortress was surprisingly warm, the stone walls draped in heavy tapestries, fire pits glowing in the great hall. Servants scattered at our approach, eyes lowered, whispering to one another, but daring no questions. "This way," Raelion ordered, leading me up a spiral staircase that climbed endlessly. "My quarters are in the north tower. You'll stay in the adjoining chamber." I followed silently, committing every turn to memory, ignoring the growing weight of dread pressing against my ribs. The pendant beneath my blouse felt heavier. Alira's words echoing in my mind. "Your gentleness is not weakness. It's your greatest strength." I prayed she was right. Raelion's chamber surprised me, stark, unadorned, powerful. A great four-poster bed, covered in thick furs, dominated one wall. Weapons lined another, swords, daggers, a bow, all marked by use rather than display. A desk buried beneath maps and scrolls sat near the window, overlooking the endless forest beyond Blackspire's walls. "You'll sleep there," Raelion said, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. He nodded toward a small wooden door I hadn't noticed before. It was built for a royal consort, though I've never taken one. I swallowed hard, pretending not to hear the weight behind those words. Without waiting for a reply, he pushed the door open. The adjoining room was modest but warm, stone walls, a single bed covered in soft furs, a small fireplace already alive with golden flames. Someone had clearly prepared it ahead of time. That realization sent a shiver through me. How could they have known I'd be coming? As if reading my thoughts, Raelion gave a faint, grim smile. "News moves fast in a pack, Lyssan. My guard sent word while we were still in the forest." He crossed back to the cradle in his own chamber, a finely carved piece of wood placed near the fire, and gently laid his son inside. The child had shifted during the journey, no longer a pup, but a human infant. His hair, a pale silver white, and his eyes the same molten amber as his father's. The transformation had exhausted him. He slept deeply. His tiny fist curled against his chest. Instinct guided me closer. "May I asked quietly, hands hovering above the cradle. Raelion nodded once, his expression unreadable as he watched. My training took over. The baby couldn't have been more than 3 months old, frail, but alive. His legs were misshapen, his hips underdeveloped. Congenital dysplasia, I realized. Serious but not hopeless. "He can be helped," I said softly. Relief warmed my chest. "It'll take time and care, but with proper treatment and exercises, he could gain real mobility." Raelion's tone was controlled, but his eyes betrayed him. "Could he walk, run? I can't promise that," I admitted gently, "but I can promise he'll have the best chance I can give him." He stared down at the sleeping infant, his jaw tight with conflict. "The circle believes an alpha heir must be flawless strength in every limb, dominance in every breath. Any hint of weakness invites challenge from other packs." His hands clenched. "They would have me sacrifice my own son for politics." His voice trembled with restrained rage, and in that moment I saw not a ruthless ruler, but a father torn apart by love and duty. "And what do you believe?" I asked quietly. Raelion's amber eyes lifted to mine, burning yet steady. "I believe strength comes in many forms," he said. "Not all are visible to those too blind to look past the surface." He touched his son's cheek with aching tenderness. "I named him Kale in my heart the day he was born. It means strong and enduring." "Kael," I repeated, smiling faintly as I looked down at the child. "It suits him." A sharp knock broke the silence. Raelion straightened instantly, shedding all softness like armor slipping back into place. "Enter," he commanded. The door opened to reveal a tall woman with raven-black hair streaked with silver. She wore flowing blue robes traced with silver runes, power humming faintly around her. Her eyes, brilliant violet, narrowed when they fell on me. "So it's true," she said, her voice smooth as silk but edged with disdain. "You've returned with both the child and a human, my king." "Careful," Maeve Raelion warned, his tone dropping. "You speak to your alpha." Maeve inclined her head, but her posture remained stiff. "The circle demands your presence. They wish to know why you've defied the old laws." "The circle demands nothing of me," Raelion replied coldly. "They exist to serve, not to rule." Her gaze shifted to me, sharp and assessing. "And what of her?" "The humans will notice her disappearance. They may come searching." A chill crept up my spine. I hadn't even thought of Haven Reach, or how my sudden absence might ripple through the fragile peace between our worlds. "I need to send word to the clinic," I said quickly. "Let them know I'm safe, that no harm's been done." Raelion studied me for a moment, then nodded once. "Maeve, send a messenger. The human will write a letter explaining her extended stay." Maeve's lips tightened, clearly displeased. "As you wish, Alpha." She turned to leave, but paused at the door. "The circle convenes at midnight." Raelion's expression hardened. "Then they'll have their answers. They won't be swayed easily this time." Raelion's words lingered in the chamber after Maeve departed, leaving me suddenly aware of the full weight of my reality. My legs gave out and I sank to the edge of the bed, every muscle trembling under the strain. "I can't think of the clinic, my patients. I'm the only medical professional for miles," I murmured, trying to steady my racing mind. "Your concern for others is admirable," Raelion said, studying me with that same piercing intensity, yet the judgment felt slightly misplaced. "Your first duty now," he reminded me, "is to my son." The words struck sharp as ice, but undeniable. I had chosen this path, and its consequences were mine to bear. "I'll need supplies," I said, straightening, letting my professional composure armor me. Splints, bandages, herbs for pain, tools to craft braces as he grows. You shall have whatever you require, Raelion promised. Maeve will see to it. A shadow of disapproval flickered across Maeve's face, though she said nothing. Raelion's humorless smile traced his lips. Few will welcome you, Lyssan. Humans and shifters share a history written more often in blood than ink, I murmured. Then why trust me? Why bring me here with your son? Raelion moved to the window, moonlight casting silver across his sharp features. When I found you with Kale, you did not flinch. You confronted an alpha to protect a child, not your own. He turned amber eyes intense. Such courage demands respect, even from a wolf. Before I could reply, Kale stirred in his cradle, small whimpers rising into urgent cries. Instinct took over. I scooped him up with ease, rocking him gently. He's hungry, I whispered. When did he last feed? Raelion asked, his tone shadowed. The wet nurse refused him after the circle's decree. No one would feed him. The realization burned through me. This child had been slowly starving along with all the neglect surrounding him. We need milk, immediately, and a feeding cloth. Raelion's voice was calm but urgent. He moved with lethal precision, calling out orders to a waiting servant. Within minutes, a tray arrived with a pitcher of milk, clean cloths, and a small curved feeding spoon. Under Raelion's watch, I dipped a cloth into the warm milk, guiding it to Kale's lips. He nursed eagerly, tiny hands clutching at the cloth. You've done this before, Raelion observed quietly. Many times, I said, smiling down at the infant whose eyes were beginning to droop as hunger eased. He's strong. Look how well he feeds despite everything. Like his mother, Raelion murmured a distant grief, shading his amber eyes. I hesitated, curiosity prying gently. What happened to her? His jaw tightened, voice low and measured. Vara died, bringing him into this world. Complications. Our healers could not save her. His hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. Her last words were a plea. For me to protect our son, I whispered, understanding the depth of his conflict. You made her a promise, Raelion admitted. Self-reproach clear in his tone. I feared breaking it today, not for me, but for him. A life of ridicule awaits a wolf who cannot run with the pack. Or perhaps a life that forges a different kind of strength, I suggested, laying the now sleeping Kale back in his cradle. Raelion's gaze sharpened, interest renewed. You speak as if you understand such things firsthand. I touched the pendant beneath my clothing, drawing its familiar strength. I do. In Haven Reach, I am tolerated for my skills, but never truly accepted. My grandmother raised me after my parents fell in the last border skirmish. The townspeople wanted me dead with them. Yet I survived. And so did you. You heal those who merely tolerate you, Raelion said softly. I heal because that is who I am, I replied simply. Their acceptance or lack of it doesn't change that. A sudden commotion outside drew our attention. Raised voices, the thunder of approaching footsteps. Raelion moved with predator's grace, positioning himself between Kale's cradle and the door just as it burst open. 3 men entered, each wearing the distinctive silver armbands marking members of the circle. They halted instantly when they saw Raelion standing protectively in front of the cradle power, crackling off him like winter lightning. Their gazes snapped between their alpha, the sleeping child, and me. The oldest among them, white hair, scar-laced face, eyes sharp as steel, stepped forward. Alpha, you spit on our traditions. The pup was judged and found. Silence. Draven Raelion snarled a rumble so deep it scraped my spine. My pulse kicked hard. You overstep. We speak for the pack, another counselor protested, younger, but just as arrogant. A broken heir weakens us all. And now you drag a human into our sacred stone. The pack will not accept this. Raelion's voice dropped to a lethal calm. Then let them challenge me. Anyone who questions my rule may face me in open combat. Until then, My word stands. He took one slow, intimidating step forward, dominance radiating off him in waves, so strong it felt like gravity itself bowed. My son lives. The human stays. There is no debate. The counselors traded uneasy glances, anger tangled with fear. We cannot shield you from the fallout, Draven warned, backing toward the door. When the neighboring packs learn you've chosen a crippled heir and sheltered a human, get out. The words hit like a physical strike. Even I flinched as he growled, leave before I forget my father once trusted you. They fled. When silence returned, Raelion didn't move. He stood breathing hard, muscles coiled, fists flexing like he was resisting the shift boiling under his skin. At last he turned, face carved from stone. Now you see what we face. Many will not accept this. Some would harm Kael. And you, to protect what they call the natural order. Fear twisted in my stomach, but I lifted my chin anyway. I'm not leaving. For the briefest moment, the corner of his mouth lifted. No, I didn't think you would. He crossed to a carved chest and withdrew a blade that shimmered in the firelight, small, wickedly sharp moonstones embedded in the hilt. Take this, he said, offering it handle first. Keep it with you, always. I held the dagger awkwardly, unfamiliar weight settling into my palm. I've never used a weapon on someone. Pray you never need to, Raelion said. But if danger comes for you or for Kael, hesitation will kill you both. The truth of it settled like iron. I tucked the dagger into a hidden fold of my dress, heart pounding. Outside, moonlight spilled across cold stone, bathing the infant in silvery glow. He looked impossibly small, unaware of the war brewing around him, or the alliance forged in his defense. Rest, Raelion ordered, quietly moving toward the door. The days ahead will test us. I must face the circle, but guards will stand outside. You and Kael are under my protection. He turned to leave. My voice caught him. Raelion. He paused. His name had slipped out, raw, unfiltered. Thank you, I whispered, for choosing your son over tradition. Something flickered in his amber eyes, surprised softness, maybe something deeper. Perhaps tradition must change, he murmured. Perhaps we must learn a new kind of strength. Then he was gone, and silence folded around me. I stood alone with the sleeping wolf prince and a future I had never imagined. Days blurred into weeks as winter tightened its claws around Blackspire Keep. Inside the fortress walls, a rhythm formed. My world revolved around Kael morning therapies, tiny exercises to coax strength into fragile legs. My fingers worked tirelessly while I hummed lullabies from a childhood I barely remembered. That's it, little warrior, I whispered as his legs responded. Stronger every day. Raelion came whenever duty allowed. He rarely spoke. Didn't have to. I always felt him first, the shift in the air, the electric awareness across my skin. Like the forest itself, held its breath when he entered a room. Even though Raelion seldom intervened directly, his questions about Kael's progress were relentless. Each tiny milestone sparked a flicker of pride that betrayed the cold mask he usually wore. Today, the infant had held his weight for several seconds on his own. One small victory, but meaningful, I reported one evening as Raelion loomed near the cradle. Every victory matters, he said, his enormous hand engulfing Kael's tiny fist. In those quiet, fleeting moments, I glimpsed the man beneath the alpha. A father desperate to see his child succeed. A leader quietly wrestling with traditions that had bound him for a lifetime. Reconciling this Raelion with the monster of human legend was increasingly difficult. Life inside Blackspire Keep remained fragile. Some pack members had begun acknowledging me with subtle nods in the hallways. Others left no doubt about their disdain. On more than one occasion I returned to my chamber to find evidence of intrusion. Items shifted, an unfamiliar scent lingering in the air. Maeve, however, proved a surprising ally. Initially distant, the pack's healer had gradually warmed to me after witnessing my devotion to Kale. "You have hands that heal," she admitted one afternoon during a therapy session. "I've never seen such improvement in a case our healers deemed hopeless." "It's not hopeless," I replied, demonstrating a careful new stretch. "It requires patience and consistency. We favor quick solutions, decisive action," she noted with dry amusement. "Some problems can't be solved with teeth and claws." Her violet eyes studied me thoughtfully. "Perhaps that is why the moon goddess sent you Lyssan," she added, "to teach an old pack new ways." The words echoed long after she departed, resonating with Alira's belief that I was destined for more than Haven Reach. The most profound change, however, came on the night of the full moon. I had been instructed to remain in my chambers during the pack's sacred hunt, a time when even the most civilized shifters surrendered to their primal instincts. Kael, too young to shift voluntarily, had sensed the lunar pull all day, restless and fidgeting. As the moon rose, Raelion entered, moving with fluid grace far beyond human capability. "We hunt tonight," he stated simply, his voice rougher than usual. "You will stay here until dawn," he continued. I nodded, expecting the order, but then he surprised me. "I want Kale to feel the moonlight." He approached the cradle where Kale squirmed and fussed unusually. Even though the infant could not yet run with the pack Raelion intended for him to understand his lineage, my objections died unspoken. Carefully, Raelion lifted Kale, holding him close as he stepped toward the balcony doors. Outside, the full moon hung low, silver light draping them both. "You are Wolf," Raelion whispered to his son. "Moon-blessed and strong in ways the circle cannot yet grasp. One day you will find your own way to run with the pack." Though Kale could not fully shift, a shimmer of silver fur rippled along his tiny frame. His amber eyes glowed brighter, and a tentative howl escaped his lips, small but defiant, calling to the moon that pulsed through his blood. Raelion's gaze met mine above his son, fierce with triumph, and in that instant perhaps gratitude. I realized then that I had given more than medical care. I had given hope. After returning Kale to his cradle, Raelion lingered near the balcony, the moonlight carving shadows across his strong features. Using my name with an intimacy that warmed me unexpectedly, he said, "What I told you the first day about keeping you here indefinitely, that was said in desperation. You are not a prisoner. When Kyle no longer requires your specialized care, you may return to your settlement if you wish." Relief should have washed over me, yet a hollow ache settled instead. And if I chose to stay? That thought seemed to startle us both. Raelion turned fully toward me. Vulnerability softened his amber gaze. "Would you stay among wolves who see your kind with suspicion or worse, hatred?" I thought of Haven Reach, where my skill kept me tolerated, but never accepted. And of Kale, whose steady progress filled me with a fierce, protective pride. Most dangerously, I thought of Raelion himself, whose presence had become something I anticipated rather than feared. "I might," I said honestly, "if I am needed." A heat stirred in his eyes, not the wolf but the man beneath. For a single breathless moment I thought he might cross the distance to me. Instead, he inclined his head slightly, a silent gesture of respect, not dominance. "You are needed." "Listen," Raelion murmured, voice low, but charged with meaning. "More than you realize." With those cryptic words, he vanished into the night, leaving me alone with a sleeping prince and a heart pounding far too fast to be entirely rational. The attack struck just before dawn. I jolted awake to Kale's frightened cries, every instinct screaming into life despite the exhaustion still heavy on my limbs. The chamber was dark shadows pooling where the fire had long ago burned to embers. My eyes adjusted enough to see a figure bending over the cradle. Not Raelion, not Maeve, someone uninvited, someone dangerous, silent. I reached for the dagger tucked beneath my pillow, Raelion's warning echoing sharply in my mind. "If the choice comes between your life and another's, or worse, Kale's hesitation will only ensure you both perish. Step away from him, I commanded, voice steadier than I expected as I rose. The intruder straightened. A woman, one of the circle's assassins. Selra. Her face twisted in disgust as she regarded me. This abomination weakens our pack, she hissed. The human lover king cannot see it, but the rest of us can. A crippled alpha is no alpha at all. In her hand she held a small vial, dark liquid sloshing inside. Poison, surely. My stomach twisted at how close she had been to Kale. The guards, I began edging toward the cradle. Occupied with a disturbance on the eastern wall, she replied, cold satisfaction in her tone. A distraction arranged by those loyal to tradition. No one will come to save you. Without warning, she lunged, movements unnaturally fast, partially shifted. Claws extended from her fingertips, slashing toward my throat. I ducked, training and instinct guiding me, plunging the dagger into her shoulder. She shrieked, twisting violently to dislodge the blade, fury burning hotter than pain. Blood spattered across my nightdress as I scrambled to the cradle, scooping up Kale and retreating toward the balcony doors. You cannot escape, Selra snarled, advancing despite her injury. Even if you kill me, others will come. The defective heir and his human nurse both must be removed. Kale wailed, trembling against me. I held him tight, pressing my back against the cold glass of the balcony doors. Options whirled through my mind. I could leap to the snow below, but the drop was lethal. I could scream, but would anyone loyal to Raelion arrive in time? A bone-chilling howl ripped through the night from directly beneath our balcony, sharp, unmistakable. Raelion. Desperation propelled me forward. I threw open the balcony doors, shouting into the darkness. Raelion, help us! Selra revealed a half-shifted face, canines, elongated lips pulled into a feral snarl. I twisted, shielding Kale as her claws raked my back. Pain flared hot along my spine, the fabric of my nightdress darkened with blood, but I refused to cry out. Give me the abomination, she hissed, circling us like a predator closing in. Your death can be swift. Never, I spat, backing toward the railing. The freezing wind whipped past, carrying Kale's terrified cries into the night. Where was Raelion? An enormous black wolf leapt from the darkness below, landing on the balcony with impossible grace. Selra spun, cruelty, replaced with stark fear as the wolf stalked toward her, amber eyes blazing with murderous intent. In seconds, Raelion shifted back into human form, muscles tensed, leather, breeches clinging to his frame, chest bare, every line of him radiating lethal intent. You dare! He growled, guttural resonating through the icy air. You dare attack my son! Selra collapsed to her knees, terror stripping her arrogance away. My alpha, I only sought to protect our bloodline from... Her words choked off as Raelion's hand closed around her throat, lifting her bodily from the ground. Who sent you? He demanded. Speak. The circle. Not all, she gasped, clawing ineffectively. Just some. They said the human had bewitched you. Said the weak cub must be culled. Raelion's expression darkened, more terrifying than ever, deliberate and lethal. Slowly he carried Selra to the balcony's edge. Tell your conspirators what you witnessed tonight, he growled, teeth bared. Tell them anyone who threatens my son or his guardian will suffer far worse than you. Without warning, he hurled her over the edge. Her scream shredded the night before cutting off abruptly with a dull thud. Not fatal for a wolf, but enough to leave a mark. No sooner had the echo faded than Raelion was before me, hands gentle as they cradled my face. Listen, he said urgently, voice raw with concern. Selra clawed me, but I'll live. Kale is unharmed, I assured him. Relief softened his features as he retrieved his son, checking him carefully before turning back to me. Without pause, he swept me into his arms. Kale nestled safely against his chest and carried us both into the warmth of the chamber. Maeve, he roared, voice echoing through the stone halls. Attend me now! He laid me carefully on my stomach across the bed, then returned Kael to his cradle, murmuring soft words until the infant's cries subsided. The tenderness in his actions contrasted sharply with the violence, moments ago revealing a depth I could scarcely name. Respect, trust. Something far more primal. Maeve arrived, breathless, silver-streaked hair tumbling over her shoulders. My Alpha. What has she faltered at the sight of me? Blood soaking the back of my nightdress. Lyssan. Treachery. Raelion growled, pacing like the wolf he truly was. Council members conspired against the throne. They sent an assassin for Kael and Lyssan, while I hunted. Maeve's violet eyes widened, then narrowed with controlled fury. Who, I asked. I will discover that shortly, Raelion promised, tone grim but reassuring. Tend to Lyssan's wounds while I secure the fortress. He paused at the doorway, intensity in his amber gaze stealing my breath. I will return soon. You are safe now. After he departed, Maeve's practiced hands helped me from the ruined nightdress, gently cleaning the 4 parallel gashes across my back. These will scar, she said softly. Shifter claws always leave marks. Scars are just stories, etched into the skin. I winced under the sting of her salve. I can live with them. Maeve worked in silence, then spoke quietly. You could have fled with Kael. Saved yourself. Why didn't you? The question startled me. Go where? Into a snowstorm with an infant who needed special care and assassins in pursuit. My hesitation spoke the truth I could not yet say. Maeve prompted softly. Besides, this is where we belong now, I admitted. I couldn't leave Kael, and I couldn't leave Raelion. Her knowing voice finished for me. You couldn't leave Raelion. I remained silent, unwilling to confirm what was becoming clear. My feelings for Raelion had grown far beyond duty, beyond friendship. Maeve sighed, finishing the bandages around my torso. The pack has noticed the way he looks at you. Some with concern, others with interest, I added silently. No alpha has ever taken a human mate. But no alpha has ever defied the circle to save a disabled heir either, she said, helping me into a clean nightdress. Raelion rewrites our laws with every breath he takes. You speak as though you approve, I observed, carefully sitting up. A rare smile touched her lips. Change comes to all things eventually, Lyssan. Even to packs as ancient as ours. Perhaps especially to them. Her expression turned serious again. But be warned, change rarely comes without bloodshed. Over the following days, Blackspire Keep became a battlefield of loyalty and politics. Raelion moved with ruthless precision, identifying the council members involved in the conspiracy and delivering swift justice. 2 were executed publicly, grim reminders of the cost of treason. 3 others were banished, stripped of rank and pack protection. Whether the remaining council's loyalty was genuine or born of fear remained to be seen. Night after night, Raelion came to our chambers, his presence softening with each step across the threshold. He would settle beside Kael's cradle, reading aloud from ancient pack chronicles in a deep, resonant voice that lulled his son into peaceful sleep. Then invariably, his gaze would shift to me, inquiring after my recovery, asking about Kael's progress, and gradually sharing fragments of himself. I learned of his childhood as the second-born, never meant to inherit leadership until his older brother fell in territorial conflicts. Of his arranged marriage to Vora, a political union that had grown into genuine affection, though not the fiery passion of legends. He spoke of his vision for a pack that valued character as much as strength. In turn, I shared tales of Alira's wisdom, my fascination with the healing arts and the isolation of living different in a world that prized conformity. Each conversation built a fragile bridge between our worlds. 2 weeks after the attack, Raelion entered our chambers with unusual hesitation, something concealed behind his back. You're nearly healed, he observed, nodding toward the faint pink lines where Maeve's salves had worked their magic. Nearly, I agreed. Curious, I asked, Is something wrong? No, he muttered, struggling with words, uncharacteristic for the usually decisive alpha. I have something for you. A token of gratitude for protecting Kale. From behind his back he revealed a delicate silver circlet, adorned with moonstone and amber gems that mirrored our eyes. I gasped. It wasn't mere jewelry. It was a symbol of high status within the pack. Raelion. I cannot accept this. You have earned it, Lyssan, he interrupted gently. You shed blood defending the royal heir. By pack law, that makes you his guardian, his family. My fingers trembled as I touched the beautiful circlet. This changes everything, I whispered. Yes, he agreed, amber eyes intent on my face. That night at Raelion's insistence, I joined the pack's weekly gathering in the great hall for the first time. Forest green gown flowing circlet gleaming atop my hair. I carried Kale in my arms as we entered beside Raelion. The hall fell silent. Hundreds of eyes watched the unprecedented scene, a human adorned with pack insignia, standing beside the formerly condemned heir. Raelion's voice carried authority that brooked no dissent. Tonight we honor courage and loyalty. Lyssan has proven herself worthy of pack protection and respect. By right of bloodshed and defense of the royal line, she is now a pack member and royal guardian. His gaze swept the room, daring anyone to oppose him. A ripple of assent moved through the crowd, some eager, some reluctant, none bold enough to contradict the alpha openly. As we moved through the gathering, I noted the mixed reactions, curious stares, respectful nods, and quickly concealed hostility. I was no longer simply the human nurse. I had become something new, unprecedented in pack hierarchy. Later, as I prepared for sleep, Raelion joined me on the balcony where we often watched the stars after Kale fell asleep. The night was clear diamonds scattered across black velvet, the waning moon casting silver light over the snow. They're beginning to accept you, Raelion observed, standing closer than usual, his warmth a shield against the winter chill. Some of them, I agreed cautiously. Others will take more convincing, he admitted, turning to me, his expression unusually vulnerable. And what of me, Lyssan? Have I convinced you of what I asked, though? I feared I already knew that there could be a place for me here, not just as Kale's caretaker, but as something more permanent. My heart stuttered. I have considered it from every angle, Raelion said, voice low and intense. The weight of politics. The centuries of rules shattered. The threat of chaos waiting just outside our peace. And yet he looked at me like none of it could ever outweigh what lived in his chest. Like every law and every consequence was small beside whatever burned in his gaze. His voice slipped through the winter air, steady and bare of pretense. I've measured every risk, every tradition I'd be breaking, every fight I might ignite. A pause breath frosting between us, and none of it matters more than what I feel when I look at you. No flowery vows, no royal performance, just truth startling in its simplicity. His amber eyes caught the starlight turning molten gold as they held mine. What do you feel? I whispered back, heart pounding like wings in a cage. Raelion stepped closer. One hand lifted warm against my cheek in stark contrast to the cold night. Peace, he breathed. Focus. Like the storm I've lived in my whole life finally settled. His thumb brushed my cheekbone, gentle as snowfall. I feel hope, Lyssan. Hope for myself, for Kale, for what our future could be. And it began the moment you stood in that snow and refused to run. My pulse roared as he pressed his forehead to mine. I won't promise you ease, he murmured. Some will fight this, fear it. But I can give you my protection, my loyalty, and whatever is left of a heart that still knows how to love. Love. The word struck deep like it had always been waiting beneath the surface. I'm scared, I admitted, barely breathing. Of me, pain flickered in his eyes. No, I whispered. Of losing this, of building something real, only to watch it shatter. The bridge between us is already built, he insisted softly. Every day you've stood here, you've shown them strength comes in more forms than claws and teeth. His fingers slid to cradle the back of my neck. Lyssan. Stay. Not as Kale's caretaker. Not as some tolerated human. Stay as my chosen. My equal. The moment pressed on me like fate itself. I pictured Haven Reach, the small life, the clinic, the quiet. And then Kale's laugh. And Raelion's steady presence. And everything that had grown here in the halls of Blackspire Keep. The decision rose from something deep and irreversible. Yes, I breathed. I'll stay. His lips found mine first, cautious, then hungry like a dam finally breaking. His arms wrapped around me, pulling me into warmth and certainty and fire. I answered with equal hunger, months of silent longing flaring to life. When we finally broke apart, foreheads touching again, our breaths unsteady, he spoke in a low rumble. There is a right, he whispered, a way to bind you to us, to shield you from challenge. Tell me. A marking, he explained, fingers tracing the hollow of my collarbone. My mark. Proof you stand with me under my protection. And yes. His voice dipped darker. My claim. Heat surged through me at the edge in his tone. A bite, I asked. He nodded, brushing the place where neck met shoulder. Here. Permanent. Visible. A mark for every eye to know you stand with the Alpha bound to me. And anyone foolish enough to threaten you answers directly to my claws. I weighed the meaning of that. The power and exposure of bearing such a symbol. What it would make me in the eyes of the pack. A stranger still. No, he cut in voice, firm and final. You would stand as my mate, second only to me. His lips curved in a rare hint of amusement. And I suspect they'll learn fast that crossing you is just as reckless as crossing me. The responsibility felt immense, and yet I had already stepped into that space, guiding him on the pup's health-easing tensions that reached our door, standing at his side, among his people. When I asked the decision, already sealed inside me. His gaze darkened, pupils widening. Traditionally the full moon, then with a low, almost dangerous softness. But I have no patience to wait. A startled laugh escaped me. Patience has never been your strong suit, Alpha. Not when I already hold something priceless in my hands. His smile, rare and disarming, cut straight through me. The mark was set 3 nights later beneath rising moonlight. No great crowd. Just Maeve in her healer's mantle and Kale watching from his cradle, those uncanny eyes taking in everything. I knelt before Raelion in the wash of silver, pouring through the ritual chamber windows. White linen brushed my knees. Moon-threaded braids framed my face, Maeve's careful hands having woven moonstones through my hair. The guardian circlet gleamed atop it all. Do you come freely to take the Alpha's mark? Maeve asked, violet gaze solemn. I do, I answered, steady voice belying the thunder in my chest. Do you understand this binds you to the pack, our laws, our protection until death divides you? I understand. She turned to Raelion, broad-shouldered in ceremonial leathers etched with ancient sigils. Alpha, do you claim her to guard, to provide to honor according to pact decree? I do, he rumbled. And more, I take her as my equal, my partner in all things. Maeve's brows flicked upward, but she dipped her head in acceptance. Then let the bond be made. Raelion knelt, palms warm at my jaw. This will hurt, he whispered for me alone. But I will be gentle. I angled my neck, breath steady. I'm not afraid. A fleeting kiss. Then his mouth at my throat, breath burning hot against my skin as his canines lengthened. A sharp slice of pain, a flash of fire, and my fingers dug into his shoulders as heat surged through my blood, not just pain, but something fierce and binding, stitching us soul deep. He withdrew, lips brushing the wound, sealing it in a primal vow, older than any crown. Something inside me shifted like a new heartbeat layered atop my own. It is done, Maeve breathed, awe threading her tone. The bond stands. She studied the mark, shining and vivid. Strong. No one will doubt it. Raelion lifted me gently as dizziness washed over me. How do you feel? Changed, I whispered. Not wrong, just connected. To you. To all of them. To the moon itself. My fingertips brushed the fresh mark, tender, but already knitting with unnatural speed. Is that normal? I asked. Maeve and Raelion exchanged a loaded look. Not entirely, Maeve admitted. Wolves feel this. Humans. Almost never. Her eyes returned to me, thoughtful, reverent. Perhaps Lyssan is more than we believed. Raelion murmured, studying me with that same stunned awe. Maybe the moon had her eyes on you, long before you ever found Kale in the snow. And as days passed, the truth of that settled deeper, like roots stretching quietly through thawing earth. The pack shifted around me, not grudging tolerance anymore, but genuine respect. Curiosity replacing old suspicion. Even the proudest elders dipped their heads when I moved through Blackspire Keep, the Alpha's mark gleaming just above my collar like silver fire. Yet the greater shift was inside me. My senses sharpened, not wolf sharp, but far beyond anything I'd known as a human. I could feel Raelion's emotions humming across the fortress walls, tugging at me like gravity itself. And Kale, my connection to him deepened, until it felt ancient, sacred, as though the mark had only sealed what my soul already chose. Spring arrived early that year, snow retreating, earth breathing again. On the first warm morning, Raelion insisted we take Kyle to the gardens, where wildflowers painted the ground like spilled jewels. I sat on a stone bench while he spread a soft blanket across the grass and settled Kale atop it with reverence. 6 months old and already a warrior in spirit. His legs would never mirror the strength of other wolves, but with daily exercises and the custom braces I crafted, he moved with stubborn brilliance. Most importantly, his mind sparkled, quick, determined, untamed. Try again, Raelion urged, gently kneeling a few feet away. Come here, little wolf. Kyle pushed up tiny brow, furrowed in fierce concentration. He maneuvered forward, not like other pups, but in a movement all his own, efficient, clever, undeniably his. Look at him, I breathed, awe swelling until my chest ached. He's carving his own path. Pride burned so bright in Raelion's eyes it nearly unraveled me, just like you said he would. When Kale reached him, Raelion scooped him up with a triumphant laugh, spinning him carefully, so sunlight haloed them both. Kyle giggled, pressed against his father's chest, safe in a world that once tried to throw him away. He may never run as they do, Raelion said, softly bringing him back to me, but he will guide them, smarter, kinder, braver than any alpha before him. His gaze found mine steady, molten sure, and he will have you to thank for revealing a new kind of strength. My fingers brushed my mark now, a silver scar that glimmered when touched by light. We taught each other, I whispered, leaning my shoulder to his, as Kale tugged playfully at my pale hair. All three of us. Sunlight soaked us in gold. The gardens hummed. Blackspire Keep rose behind us, not a prison, but a home. A kingdom reshaped by love, defiance, and fate. I thought of the girl I once was alone, unclaimed, wandering the edge of Haven Reach, with only duty to anchor her. And I thought of the woman I had become, war-marked, moon-touched, bound not by blood, but by choice. The journey had been carved in pain, in risk, in courage. But sitting there with Raelion's warmth against my side and Kale's small fingers curled around mine, I knew with iron certainty I would choose it again. Every step, every scar. Some souls are forged to bridge worlds, to challenge what power means, to prove strength doesn't always roar, it nurtures, heals, protects. Finding Kale in that winter forest did not simply save him. It lit the path to my destiny, etched in moonlight, sealed by the Alpha's bite, and lived beside the two lives fate tied to mine. And I was no longer just human. I was chosen. I was claimed. I was home. I was